Hello and welcome, I'm Ari Lax, and today we're just going to be playing the enemy, testing for the upcoming string of modern events. Whether you're going to the SCG Tour Stop in Charlotte this upcoming weekend, whether you're going to Grand Prix Vegas, whether you're going to the Invitational at the end of the month, you are going to have to be playing with or against Grixis Shadow, barring some drastic change to a bunch of stuff. But this is kind of, I mean, Brad did just win the last Open Series with it, but it is the best deck in the format. I don't think it's dominatingly the best deck necessarily, but like it does all the right stuff in all the best ways. And I'm just gonna play some rounds with it and talk through a lot of the stuff because it is kind of my forte, which is, you know, Thoughtseize decks have kind of been how I've done the most winning. Probably a good reason I should be playing this deck instead of like Living End or something, but you know, who knows. So looking through, you will notice the deck is basically blue-black with barely any red across the main deck and sideboard. So you're getting away without a basic mountain, basic island, basic swamp, bunch of jewels to fetch. Notably, your base black mostly because of Thoughtseize and Inquisition, a little lighter on blue, hence why there's 2 Blood Crypts, 1 Steam Vents. Maximum number of fetch lands that are on color. It's kind of interesting. This Scalding Tarn is like, I believe, I'm forgetting the name of the player who won, but the European Grand Prix recently was won by a player who misregistered Flooded Strand instead of Scalding Tarn because, for whatever reason. And the only difference is it can't fetch Blood Crypt, which is a downgrade, but it's just kind of funny that it's not that big of a downgrade. So we've got our cantrips. Worth noting, there's no Mishra's Baubles in this list. That's because Mishra's Bauble is basically a green card because the special ability on Mishra's Bauble is basically card-type artifact. Without Tarmogoyf or Traverse, there's no need for that card in your deck. So we have Serum Vision, Street Wraith. Obviously, Street Wraith is still great because of Shadow. Serum Vision is just a great magic card across Modern. And then Thought Scour because you're fueling your Delve cards as well as your Snapcaster Mages. Moving to the spells, we have, you know, obvious heavy set of Thoughtseize Inquisition to hit their hand, alongside Stubborn Denial to replace the last copy or so. Having a mix of discard and counter magic is often much more effective against combo decks than having one or the other. Just historically, you know, they can beat discard with the top of their deck, they can beat counter magic by setting up for it. But if you can pick apart the piece of their hand that they require, and then have the counter magic to punish, like to lock their top decks out, that's usually kind of the end of the game. Heavy on Fatal Push for the removal. You do have some terminates on the basis of we do have to kill opposing Gurmag Anglers and Taskers and similar nonsense. A Lightning Bolt, I'm not necessarily sure this is required, but better than Tarfire, again, because the power on Tarfire is card-type tribal, and we don't have Tarmogoyf or Traverse. And then some Kolaghan's Command. A card that I'm not sure I like as much in the Jund list, but because of Snapcaster Mage, this card gets really good. The crazy Snapcaster Kolaghan loops that you saw in traditional Grixis do still exist here. And then our threats, just pretty solid 4/4/4, 4 Delve creatures, 4 Death Shadow, 4 Snapcaster. In terms of Delve Split, there's currently 2 and 2 from Brad's list, but I'm not sold on that. I could actually see Gurmag Angler being distinctly better. Though it's possible you want like a Tassiger instead of the last Angler, because the Delve count doesn't make a huge difference. A 5/5 does, but like 2 Anglers is a little more obnoxious to utilize than 2 Tassiger plus Angler, and obviously 2 Tassiger is the nightmare. So worth noting that by moving away from Tarmogoyf and Traverse, you are making yourself a little bit better against Graveyard Hate, but not a ton. You know, these 4 threats are just going to get shut off by a Leyline of the Void. And Snapcaster Mage is technically still a creature in the face of that, but not quite as good as you'd want it to be. Moving to the sideboard, you'll notice the one big sacrifice is access to a card like Abrupt Decay. So you're really leaning on counter magic to hit that kind of permanent. So you have more Stubborn Denials in case of playing against like Jeskai Ascendancy or Phyrexian on Life or something. Ceremonies, rejections for various Eldrazi and Tron cards. Brad was pretty heavy-handed on these. Collective Brutalities as additional discard, as well as kind of the game breaker against both burn and Collective Company strategies. Not necessarily a card I'm super excited about main decking, but when it does its job, the game just ends. Another Kolaghan's Command against Affinity, and as a grindy card against various pseudo mirrors or mirrors. Liliana for picking off random creatures, and as another grindy card. It's cool that we get to overlap quite a bit here. I really like as a Staticaster as a card, and just shuts off certain decks. Again, Affinity, the company decks, especially because they're leaning on Vizier for their backup combo, which is a 2-1. Some Surgicals and Neo Spellbomb splits. No ley lines. You're actually... I normally like Leyline as like a one-of in the black decks, but the problem is that with the switch to heavy cantrips, you're going to be seeing these cards a lot, and they're going to be moving from your deck to your hand a lot more than they would be with like Abzan or Jund or something, where the cards are just in your deck and you draw a card a turn. So you want to be able to draw your card after a couple turns. And then Kozilek's Return, I'm not sold on. I actually think it should be Anger of the Gods. But the instant speed is better against Collective Company, whereas Anger is your backbreaker against Dredge. To be fair, Brad did beat Dredge in the finals of the Open. Sorry, Ben Friedman. But I don't know how much weight that specifically carries. Anyways, I'm looking forward to more Thoughtseizing and Inquisitioning of my opponents. I'm already 2-0 in the league. I'm about to hop into having defeated a mirror match. Not a lot of interesting things happened in that mirror match. And I beat Scapeshift, where actually game 1 was kind of interesting. They had to short scape. I put them at lethal the turn before they could have the perfect like Sakura Tribe plus the Scapeshift they have in hand, or like Search or whatever. But I knew they had Scapeshift and like 2 unknowns, and they had to fire Scapeshift for a short Valakut to gun down one of my like 3 Death Shadows that was threatening lethal. And then they had like another turn to rip Scapeshift. But it was like a really interesting sequence of events because I had F6, didn't notice they had cast Scapeshift, and then I was like, oh no, my thing died, and then I guess I'm just going to die, and then they conceded. I'm like, huh? And I look at their graveyard, I'm like, oh, there's a Scapeshift. I see exactly what happened now. Anyways, that was fun, that match. Deck's quite good against Scapeshift and similar combo decks, but let's see what our opponents can try to put together against us.